Alright, let's get started with simple base mesh for this SciFi container. So, a good habit, just gonna create a new project. So I already made a folder in here. Let's see. SciFiContainer. So this is the folder in which kind of everything related to this project for me will exist. So I have my recordings here. See, I'm making my project. So just select. Okay, so now that's the folder this project will go to. And I'll call this SciFi container underscore Maya. So this is the Maya project. Okay. Just gonna make it very simple. Like I said, cylinder, hold X to snap to grid, and let's grab these top polys, Control E to extrude, and extrude up a little bit, and then just extrude again. Hold Control while scaling, some scaling in X and Z simultaneously, and extrude again. Hold Control, just gonna scale in here. So you see when I'm doing these extrudes, extrude again, pull down a little bit, extrude again. You see I'm kind of leaving behind these edges. It's kind of effectively giving me these creasing edges without having to, or as opposed to going in and adding them after the fact. Okay, a couple more extrudes down there. Okay, so if I subdivide now, it should kind of retain that shape. And, alright, so at the bottom here, so I'm just selecting everything right and then Control deselecting. So Control E and scaling in. So yeah, so right there I'll add. So here I'm just holding spacebar. That's to get up this kind of gesture-based menu. Set it's the exact same menus, but just have them right here. I can do edge loop. Oops, it's kind of set to multiple edge loops at the moment. Set it to relative, and just adding that creasing edge right there. Okay. So that's going to be it for my very, very simple base mesh. The final goal here will be to bring this to ZBrush and add a bunch of surface details and eventually bake it down to a normal map, which will increase the level of detail here quite a bit. But the base mesh will be kept very simple. Now there are, of course, limitations with a normal map, just like a bump map. It will not actually alter the contours at all, so you know, to keep that in mind. So if you wanted to have slightly more details, like for instance something like this, let's see, just do an extrude, pull out, you know, it's like little details like that, which would actually alter quite a bit the contours. I can never pull that off with a normal map. So I do want the base mesh to kind of retain all of the contour changes. So even if it's going out like that, or if it were to go, that one, yeah. So go in. See, it's still altering that contour. That would not necessarily be the case if I had a little, maybe a detail right there. You see, that's actually not altering the contour that much. See there, the contour is still kind of retained. So something like that, kind of surface detail like indents and different things we'll play around with in ZBrush is definitely something that a normal map can give us. So, but that's it for now. I'm just gonna UV map this thing, and yeah, for something this simple, maybe it's overkill to export it to headers UV layout, but that's kind of my preferred UV solutions. So, or actually, container 1, don't need the materials, just turn that off on the OBJ export, and I'll just export an OBJ and do the UV mapping over there. So if for some reason you don't see the OBJ file on export, you might have to go into your settings preferences plugin manager and just find OBJ. So here it might be a little tricky to find. Here, OBJ export, and make sure this is loaded, and you can set it to auto load. Okay. So let's bring that over to, we can go ahead and save the scene, by the way. So let's be container 01. So now we've made both of my project, and now we have a scene within that project. And then I'm going to find headers. UV Layout Pro. Okay, so I'm going to navigate to that file. And yeah, just put it there. Okay. Again, not going to spend too much time on this. Some very simple cuts, holding C to cut, spacebar, and what is it? One of the mouse buttons. I'm using a pen currently, so but at least hold spacebar and you can move them. And then cut, D to drop. And yeah, I'm just going to do the most obvious cut there. And as you see, I'm not really bothered where I'm placing the seams right now. Shift F. Seams are still a consideration to make. Like, you know, for instance, if there were to be like a front side to this asset, and I knew that that particular side would be more visible, maybe, I wouldn't have to place a seam right there, for instance. All right, so pack, and just a quick pack all. Just going to do a solution kind of like that. I can alter that if I want, but I prefer to do that in Maya again. So just overwrite that obj and import. And let's see, go to my UV editor. There we have the new UVs, and delete the first object here from the outliner. Okay. Yeah, so the main considerations here again is that the UVs are not outside 0 to 1, and you do want to leave some space. Don't place them too close here on the border. See, Hedis gave us at least a little bit of gap there. Could have a little more if we wanted to. And no overlap for the UVs, obviously, like always. And currently, Hedis has given me a very even textile density, so I do not want to go in and scale these UV shells independently of each other, because the textile density is right now very even. Okay, so technically these UVs are fine. The consideration now would be I could change the actual layout a bit if I wanted to make this look a bit more maybe logical. So I could, maybe if I'm not too thrilled about that solution Hedis gave me, which would be more of it could be a practical choice here also. Like you see here, without actually altering the scale at all, I can still move these just in from that 0 to 1 border. So that's one consideration, and and make it also a bit more logical, So, but it's okay. All right. So UV's fine. I'm gonna save the scene, and that's it for the base mesh. So one more consideration before we export this to ZBrush. First of all, this is a circular object, so not paying too close attention to the axis here, but this is something you will have to be considerate of if your asset has a very kind of defined front and back and side, is to pay attention to the axis here. So the C-axis, this blue axis, should be kind of the front. So the front should go this way in this case, right? So if this were whatever, like a spaceship or a car or whatever, see, this would be the front. So beautiful car. This would be the front, and that would be the correct orientation for a ZBrush. So you do want the front going that way with the Z-axis. Okay, and do have a seam right there, but I think it'll be okay. I mean, for my purposes, this is just going to be a circular object which I can place however I want in the scene. Okay, but all right, so one more consideration though is that we have a very uneven polygonal distribution. That just means that these polygons are much, much larger than these ones. So a quick fix for that is just to introduce some extra edge loops. And we can actually do that, and just for that simple purpose of having a more even polygonal distribution, just that we're going to get much more even kind of sculpting resolution in ZBrush for each subdivision level. So it is worthwhile to do that, but probably want to just kind of keep in mind where you place them so that you can actually delete them after the fact. So here, these edge loops, they would serve no purpose in my final base mesh. But it's just that technical consideration. Now we have a more even polygonal distribution. You see the polys are more or less kind of more even. The bottom here I'm not going to be concerned about. So, well, just because I don't want to see it. If the asset were to be kind of, let's say you're filling your scene with these assets, and they, you can also place them like this. Of course, yeah, you would have to pay attention to the bottom here. In which case, I would change, maybe add another edge loop here, which would be difficult since these are tries, but not more difficult. Let's see, just like that, and 2 faces. And then I would do an extrude. Now we see we have, and I can kind of, okay, so the tries are just in here. These are now quads, and I could add, edge loops there. But, like I said, I'm not going to be worried about it. So, okay. And deleting these extra edge loops again then would be something that we can do. Because when I select them, you will see that obviously they're not a part of the border edges here of the UV shells. So that's why I did the UV mapping first, just to ensure that I'm definitely not cutting into any of these superfluous edges. So, control backspace. Let's see, working? Control, there we go. So, just gets rid of them, and the UVs are kind of undisturbed by that. If I did try to delete some of the border edges, and you might have tried this, let's see, that one, that's a border edge of all of these UV shells, right? A lot of them, you will see that if you delete it, the UVs will kind of implode. It doesn't create, crazy geometry, it's just deleting that edge loop. So if we ignore the UVs, this looks fine, but then we would have to do the UVs again, which I don't want to do. Okay, so that's it. We have some extra edge loops just for the sake of even polygonal distribution. We have what seems to be technical okay UVs and legal topology, meaning that we don't have any n-gons, and this should be fine. If you do have n-gons, ZBrush will not be too happy, and it will tell you that there's a problem with your mesh. Okay, so that's it. So let me now export this guy, and that will be the basis for the ZBrush sculpt.